Welcome, Aquarius, to your energy alert deep dive special video for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Across the 28th to the 30th of June, there's a huge amount of planetary activity. Some of it is highly energized, and some of it can be incredibly draining. How do we navigate this? On the screen is your event chart of the Capricorn full moon, but from a purely Aquarius viewpoint. That's at the heart of this energy. I'm going to unpack this for you. By the end of the video, you'll have a clear picture of what's coming over the next 2 weeks in terms of your vitality, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. Please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. So on the 28th of June, Mars, the planet of action, desire, thrust, and initiative, moved into the quick-witted air sign of Gemini. But the reception committee was your modern ruler, Uranus, and immediately they've ignited together a brilliant spark. Because for you, Aquarius, that's the fifth house. The fifth house has a flavor of Leo in so far as you can share your charisma, your talent in a really powerful way over the next 6 weeks of Mars being in Gemini, but also potentially over the next 13 months too, because on Tuesday the 30th, as Jupiter, the planet of growth and hope, moves into your sector of relating, Mars reconnects in an elemental way in the sextile with Jupiter. Now, they have been in a sextile for some while. Sextiles are very enabling and positive, but the air of Gemini oxygenates the flame of the Leonian Jupiter. And that just adds more spark and passion and vibrancy to the situation. You'd really be hard pushed to get any better energy. However, what we also have is Mercury in a retrograde on the 29th, and depending on where you live, the full moon, the 29th to 30th. And that can be quite complex, not necessarily just because it's a full moon. Full moons always create quite a lot of intensity and tension because the sun and the moon are competing. But this one is T squared by the dreamy drifting energy of Neptune. And therefore, Neptune is at the apex of the tension between the sun and the moon. And therefore, the energy has to come out somewhere. So it may well come out through your thinking or your ideas, or perhaps your way of engaging with other people, because the third house is about all of those areas. But Neptune, of course, can be fabulous, conjuring up great ideas, for being hugely expressive around our artistic talents, all of that very strong. But for you, the moon in Capricorn is in the 12th house, which is a very psychological energy. The sun's in the 6th house, a very practical energy. So because Neptune is in a square to the moon, what that aspect can do is amplify anxiety, I feel. And what the position of Neptune to the sun can do is perhaps drain us physically. And that's the contrast between that very buzzy, effervescent vibe of Mars and Uranus linking to Jupiter against Neptune. So Neptune's a mightily important energy on this event, because once Jupiter moves into Leo, Jupiter picks up with Neptune in a trine. So those ideas can come to something, but they have to be rooted in practicality, which is where the sun is. Now, of course, as far as the, pardon me, itchy nose, as far as the sun is concerned in Cancer, we're talking about emotional security, we're talking about intuition, we're talking about being very protective, whereas the moon in Capricorn is very much about containment, control, and responsibility. And of course, they're both in cardinal signs, which like to be in charge. And Neptune's in a cardinal sign as well. So it's a cardinal T square. And the confusing, distorting energy of Neptune can either drain us or it could amplify our concerns. So how do we deal with this? I think the most important thing is to try to be as grounded as possible. And strange as it may seem to say, I don't feel that Mars conjunct Uranus is a particularly grounding energy. Yes, it's a very active one. The sign of Gemini can be about communication, of course, but it can also be about a desire for short journeys or to do cardio exercises that are quick, sharp, but really get our heartbeat going. Brilliant for that kind of stuff, but can be a little bit impatient and maybe a bit reactive. We also have Mars in a T-square with the nodal axis, and they've been guiding us all for the last 18 months across Pisces, the south, and Pisces, the north, and Virgo, the south. And that fifth house energy of Mars, therefore, is very provocative with Uranus in the mix to what the North Node's been asking us, Aquarius, to work with in terms of our foundations, being in touch with the instinctive foundations of our world and trying to keep things very much on an even keel. So Mars will be provocative in that regard, and that can create more disorientation. And we may find ourselves oscillating between the different cardinal energies. Do we retreat, which is an entirely understandable thing with the 12th house energy, or do we take the challenge on? But with that challenge, we have Mercury in the retrograde in the sign of Cancer, which for us Aquarius people is very much about details. Mercury doesn't like being in Cancer, but is retrograde through to the 23rd. So heaps of different contrasting energies. I feel that Mercury retrograde will get the blame for most of the bogged down feeling that we're experiencing. But for me, it's very much about, on one hand, being quite hyper, and on the other hand, being very sensitive. And it's just trying to divine the way in which this may play out and how we can try to deal with the challenge. So I think one of the things to understand is that if something isn't working for us, then Neptune could push us to dissolve it. And one of the things could be if we're being very dutiful in a situation which actually utterly drains us. Or is there someone around us that we really quite like? But if they're very needy and they're showing that a lot, is that becoming quite draining? Or is it that we're with people who are actually very unempathetic when we want to be around people who are much better at managing and sharing their feelings, which is a very positive thing? I think it's also the case that we could encounter someone who's a little bit of a martyr. Oh, don't worry, I'll do it, that kind of energy. So we just need to be aware of that too. But how can we make our way forwards through this next 2 weeks in a productive way? Well, fortunately, the traditional ruler of Saturn, the traditional ruler of Aquarius, Saturn, is in a very strong link with Venus. So if there are good relationships in our world, I feel that leads to solid communication. Also, Jupiter moving into the seventh house asks us to have generosity of spirit. If we encounter someone who does trigger us a little bit, is maybe to let things go that aren't really worth really giving too much oxygen to. Also, if we are wanting to really restructure what we do for a living, the sixth house, and do something that's much more stimulating, perhaps this event is going to push us out of retreating to where we feel most comfortable, the south node and the moon in the 12th house, and actually taking on the test and reaching out and trying to bring some fresh energy into our world to make that change. So there are some opportunities. In terms of our emotional world, Chiron, however, has moved into the fourth house, replacing Uranus, essentially. And that is a chance to think about how things feel, but not be ill at ease with that. So the moon in the 12th house might show up some vulnerabilities and sensitivities. And the Chiron position is kind of saying, well, let's receive these. Let's try and work with these energies. And as I mentioned, as Jupiter moves into Leo, it does link back in a fantastic trine to Neptune. So if you have got inspirational ideas you want to share, or there is someone that you'd like to connect to that you really like, there's a lot of promise on this event for sure. I'm going to summarize those 4 areas of vitality, work, relationships, and finances next, Aquarius. Just before I do, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope report. It's now 3 for the price of 1. The one you pay for is your life roadmap, helps us to understand the patterns that play out in life, get a better awareness of those. And 3, your 12 months transit, but also your draconic soul karmic analysis. Please see below for more. If you don't know your time, please choose the solar option, and you can also choose between whole sign and Placidus. If you know astrology well, in my humble opinion, go for Placidus. If you're emerging into it, whole sign is a more relatable system, I feel. If you've yet to watch your July monthly forecast or your Jupiter into Leo 13-month forecast, on the screen is the eye, the italic eye. Please click on that and you can watch those. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please see my testimonials below. And if you'd like to sign up for your free daily horoscope, please do that below too. Get your celestial pit stop early each day. So to summarize, in terms of physical energy, the 6th house with Mercury going retrograde, anything to do with things like doctors or dental appointments, even with your pets, the 6th house, just be aware of making sure that you do know when you're supposed to go. There could be some cancellations of course, with Mercury retrograde, but it is an opportunity to perhaps become more virtuous about some small details and make some graduated gains. But also it's important to be in touch with that deeper, perhaps more shadow side of our natures, the bit we don't always want to look at, the bits where we are perhaps less assured, we're not quite so certain, the dreams that we have, which to be honest could be very vivid over the next couple of weeks because of Neptune and the moon in that square, very amplifying. In terms of uh, the financial situation, I think the T-square between Mars and Uranus and the nodal axis could see some quick speculative action that challenges the status quo. It depends on the type of mindset you have. If you're someone who's quite comfortable with taking punts and knows how to calculate the risk, you might feel, I want to go for it. But if you're someone who's generally a bit more cautious, I wouldn't change that lifetime habit. As far as your love life is concerned, if you're in a tie which is steady Eddie, Venus in that brilliant trine with Saturn is very, very good. If, however, you're not quite so sure, or you'd like to meet someone, Jupiter moving into the 7th house can be very healing, but it can also bring opportunities over the next 13 months. But this is where the energetic side of an event chart suggests that Jupiter linking to Mars, when Jupiter arrives, will set up a really excellent next 13 months to socialize. And you're going to meet a lot more people. And I think that's going to create a lot more opportunities. When it comes to the professional situation, however, the 6th house can be about the job, but it can also be about the job's processes and how much personal satisfaction we get from it. If you're in a place where the atmosphere is not good, or there tends to be a lot of people who don't do much and some who do a lot, and that's tolerated through bad management, I think you're really being encouraged to break out, work for yourself, or do something different and fresh that really stimulates your individuality, particularly with Pluto linking so magnificently to Mars and Uranus. It's a once in a lifetime chance to really spark that very forward thinking part of your nature. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Aquarius. All the best, and look forwards, I hope, to seeing you again.